Hey YouTubers, this is the Gold Standard 0924 coming at you with the 14th and final installment in my Wrestling Reimagining series for WWE 2006. For today's video, I'll be tackling the Smackdown December PPV event, which will be Armageddon. Now, this was around this time where WWE was slowly phasing away the concept of the brand exclusive pay per view events, meaning that certain wrestlers from a certain brand would be wrestling, especially during a minor pay per view show. In this case, like Armageddon being a pay per view reserved for only wrestlers that were competing on SmackDown. Now, in actuality, Armageddon had a number of wrestlers from opposing brands, such as Monday Night Raw, for instance, to cross over into the SmackDown pay per views with Armageddon, most notably in the main event where John Cena was teaming up with Batista, taking on Booker T and Finlay. And the same applies, especially when they got Jeff Hardy from Raw to team up with Matt Hardy, who was already on SmackDown. And they were doing a fatal four way ladder match that had Eminem and William Regal, Dave Taylor, Paul and Brian Kendrick. I mean, as great of a match as it was, but this was really at that time where WWE was just deciding, you know what, just to hell with the idea of brand exclusive pay per views. We're just gonna merge wrestlers from opposite brands and have them come together on pay per view, and maybe not necessarily on weekly television, but when it comes time for pay per views, this would be the opportunity for wrestlers from opposing brands to kind of gel together. And that would be in effect starting with Backlash '07. And it was already pretty clear that WWE, especially with the buy rates that they were having with this December to Dismember, and how poorly received the pay per view was in terms of attendance and the reception as far as the quality of the show is concerned. So it was pretty much the nail in the coffin for WWE to just kind of do away with the idea of having brand exclusive events and just reverting back to the way that they originally structured the brand split. And the only time that wrestlers would come together would be on pay per view. And we're not just exclusive to just the big fours like Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, but even some of the minor pay per views, like I discussed with Backlash. That being said, with WWE, especially with the way I've been booking so far, but I've tried to stay true to the brand exclusive pay per views. So I didn't necessarily have wrestlers jumping over from opposite brands in order to try and sell this pay per view. Now, granted, I did happen to have the FBI booked for this show, despite the fact that they are wrestling for ECW. But since ECW doesn't currently have a tag division of its own, so therefore, in this case with Nunzio, or Little Guido, as he's already called by this point, along with Big Vito, they were already on SmackDown just prior to the ECW brand being revived. Now, they could be able to jump from one show to another until there ever comes a time when Paul Heyman decides to invest in a tag team division. But I'll get more into the match that they'll be involved with just a moment. In the meantime, that aside, I'm just going to kick things off with this pay per view to close out 2006. And the match that will open up for Armageddon would be a tag team title defense, whereas Brian Kendrick and Paul London, the Hooligans, will defend their belts against the Blue Bloods, which is William Regal and Squire Dave Taylor. Now, Dave Taylor had made his debut towards the end of October going into early November. He would reunite with William Regal in this case, and they've been racking up a lot of wins, even going over Brian Kendrick and Paul London in these individual one-on-one matches, and even during a non-tag title match on SmackDown. and those two teams would represent opposing sides at Survivor Series. Brian Kendrick and Paul London would be on Batista's corner, whereas William Regal and Dave Taylor would represent Randy Orton's. Now, Orton's team had gone over Batista's team at Survivor Series, and now Regal and Taylor have proven time and again that they are the superior tag team around, therefore automatically qualifying themselves for a number one contendership against Kendrick and London for those tag team title belts. So the match is set for Armageddon. We have this match just to open up the show. A lot of mixing of two teams with unique wrestling abilities. So Kendrick and London, known for their emphasis on high flying acrobatics. The Blue Bloods, known for their stiff, strong style, mat based wrestling that those two wrestlers are known for. So that's definitely going to be a theme throughout this match. And I would have Brian Kendrick and Paul London overcome these odds, despite the fact that Taylor and Regal would get mostly the offense, and Ashley Mazzaro, being Kendrick and London's valet, is going to do her best to support them. So, despite the amount of beatings that Kendrick and London endures, they manage to overcome the odds like the underdogs that they tend to be, and they are going to walk out of this match still your SmackDown Tag Team Champions. So I think this could be potentially a pretty great match. I know they were originally sanctioned to have a tag team match between the two, but then Teddy Long came out there to call an audible, so they had to make it a fatal four-way ladder match. But I think this particular 2-on-2 tag team match, I don't necessarily mind to keep, or at least what they originally were going to do prior to the bait and switch that they did at the last moment. But, I mean, it pains me to take away the ladder match that they had, which was really, really enjoyable. There is a reason why I took away the ladder match, and I'll get more into detail with that as the video goes along. Brian Kendrick and Paul London are going to retain the SmackDown Tag Team titles. Now we get to the second match, and will be MVP taking on Chavo Guerrero. Now, this is basically going to be a TV style match, so it's not necessarily going to go on for very long, but there's a story that builds leading into this show. Now, this is an extension of the MVP Rey Mysterio program that's been boiling since No Mercy. MVP manages to make his pay-per-view debut by successfully defeating Rey Mysterio. Now, they do have a rematch on SmackDown, but MVP is going to take out Rey Mysterio, sidelining him out of action since I believe Rey Mysterio was undergoing knee surgery at this time. So I would have MVP just being the heel that he is, just to put a lot of the heat on him. So MVP takes out Rey Mysterio. Chavo Guerrero is furious. I mean, even despite the fact that Chavo and Rey have their past rivalry, but at the same time, he realizes that Rey Mysterio is family, and he will intend on avenging Rey Mysterio by lashing out on MVP. So this sort of builds into this match here at Armageddon. Even though Chavo Guerrero is going to do his best to kind of wear out MVP in the first few minutes of the match, I should say, MVP is going to find a way to change the complexion of the bout, and he's going to go over Chavo Guerrero and just basically dismantling him in the process. There's definitely a lot of potential for MVP, and it really showed during this particular time frame. And I would have him just completely decimate Chavo Guerrero. Now we have is a 6-person mixed tag, and the FBI along with Trinity, who was technically part of the FBI, so they're going to go after Michelle McCool and Casey James along with Idol Stevens, her tag team. Now, this really involves Trinity and Michelle McCool being sort of like the centerpiece, sort of the catalyst. Now, Trinity was under WWE contract around this time, although kayfabe-wise, she was part of the resurrected ECW, which at the time was looked at as a separate entity to WWE. Now, she was kind of one of the more forgotten and overlooked woman wrestlers during that early mid 2000s period. She had her success in TNA. She was sort of the answer to Lita, and she does provide her own stunt work. We'll definitely play up some of that daredevil persona that Trinity was known for doing. Furthermore, I would have Trinity start this whole movement or this kind of declaration of war against divas, especially when it comes to the WWE. Is that, when it comes to these divas, Trinity feels that these women are kind of perceived as eye candy and just someone that drives a grown man's hormones. Trinity's kind of more of an advocate for woman empowerment, someone that just trying to look up at my notes for a moment here. So she's billing herself as sort of the anti-diva of not just sports entertainment, but professional wrestling in general. So she feels women in wrestling don't get enough respect for their hard work and athleticism, and that they are looked as sex objects. So to demonstrate, Trinity sets her eyes out on Michelle McCool as an example of a female superstar, a model, former school teacher going out her way to manipulate her quote-unquote students, referring to Casey James and Idol Stevens. So Trinity's just, in the weeks leading into Armageddon, is just completely provoking a rivalry. She's just trashing Michelle McCool in these sort of promos. Michelle kind of takes notice of this, and she just obviously takes offense. Can't stand the attitude that Trinity bestows upon her. Like, she can't tolerate just the attitude that she's given to her. It just rubs her the wrong way. The FBI are kind of gonna go after Michelle McCool, but Casey James, Idol Stevens are kind of there to kind of even the odds. So this is gonna set up this 6-person mixed tag match, and I would have the FBI along with Trinity to go over, but Michelle McCool and her tag team of Casey James and Idol Stevens, and Trinity just starting off this whole anti-diva movement really strong. I really feel like they could have done more with Trinity. I know she had her own decision to retire from the wrestling business, but I want to try and make the most out of this opportunity, especially with her on my, well, not necessarily on my like ECW roster since I'm not booking ECW, but try to utilize Trinity, especially given this opportunity, and to really kind of spice up a little interest in this ECW talent exchange, I guess you could say, but really kind of developing her character and see what we can do from there. So nevertheless, the FBI along with Trinity, they're going to come out on top in this 6-person tag. Now we have is the Cruiserweight Championship belt being up for grabs. Jimmy Wang Yang going in as the champion, defending the belt against Jamie Noble. Not much build here, except this whole theme kind of centers around Jamie Noble taking offense due to the fact that Jimmy Wang Yang is just making a complete mockery of Southern rednecks, especially given Jamie Noble is a redneck from West Virginia. So he plans on putting an end to Jimmy Wang Yang's title reign by taking the strap off the Southern Oriental and send his ass back to the Far East. Now, this match would be what you expect for a Cruiserweight title match, and I would have Jamie Noble just kind of go over Jimmy Yang and become the new Cruiserweight champion. I think this could be a really solid match. I know they had the match on SmackDown, which was actually pretty enjoyable with the time that they were given. But yeah, this match is not necessarily going to go too long, but at least reasonable enough for them to get enough time to do what they can to perform the best match they could possibly have. So just really making the most out of the time limit. And Jamie Noble's gonna walk out of the match as your new Cruiserweight champion. The anticipated, or I guess you could say the culmination of a rivalry that's been going on since this past summer. And this is going to be a steel cage match involving Shane Helms and Matt Hardy. Teddy Long, being the SmackDown general manager, sanctions a steel cage match, banning all competitors, including Shannon Moore, from ringside. Matt understands how vicious it's like to be surrounded by a chain link fence, with the confidence that he will use this steel cage as an opportunity to beat some sense to his friend, now ex-friend, Shane Helms. On the other hand, Shane is determined to do whatever it takes to not prove not only to Matt Hardy but to the naysayers that he is the best damn thing to ever grace this WWE ring. The Hurricane may not be the superhero people once looked up to, but bottom line is that when the smokes are clear, Shane guarantees without a shadow of a doubt that he'll stand tall, and any trace of remorse that he may have will become obsolete. No pun intended. But yeah, this was definitely be a match that will be given plenty of time. Shannon Moore is not going to be at ringside. Now, especially with steel cage matches, as far as my criticism is concerned, they always have to have wrestlers or like authority figures interfering in some way, shape, or form, despite the purpose behind the cage matches to ban all affiliates from trying to sabotage the match, try to give someone a disadvantage in the match and make sure that they're the wrestler that they're supporting to come out on top. Tay Long's not going to tolerate that. And if at any point that Shannon Moore even interferes this match, that Tay Long would just, completely fire Shannon Moore from the SmackDown roster. So nevertheless, Matt and Shane, they go at it. They perform their own spots, which I'm sure they could come up with. And Matt's going to come out on top after a series of matches where, as far as one-on-one matches are concerned, Shane Helms has been dominant throughout most of this feud. But Matt Hardy's going to finally get that big moment. And he's going to overall win this whole feud, end this feud with a happy ending. And Matt Hardy's going to go over Shane Helms once and for all. That even though I haven't utilized Matt Hardy in a way where I would have him as like world champion or anything, but I'm pretty confident that this feud will definitely keep him occupied and keep his star power going strong. Even if he's not holding a championship belt necessarily, but to kind of really add some more depth to the feud that Matt and Shane would have. And I feel that there was something that was missing from the actual feud that they had during this time. I don't think they had like an intense story or motivation that gives viewers a reason to really tune in. I mean, they only had like a series of matches here and there, but there wasn't really a lot of story or a lot of depth to it. Besides, oh yeah, these two guys are best friends and yada yada yada. I think from this retelling of the Matt Hardy Shane Helms program, I think this could be an opportunity to elevate both wrestlers. So hopefully I did that justice. Now we have is the United States Championship belt up for grabs. This is going to be kind of a bit of a breather, just coming out of an intense match between the two high flyers. But this is going to be Bobby Lashley going in as the champion, defending the belt against Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy had buried The Undertaker alive at Survivor Series with help from The Miz. The Miz and Mr. Kennedy, viewers had believed that they were having this sort of falling out leading in the Survivor Series, but it turns out that this was all a ruse. So, utilizing that opportunity, Kennedy and Miz worked together to bury The Undertaker alive, really cementing Kennedy as, without a doubt, the phenom of sports entertainment. So this kind of gets under the fans' skin, gets under the skin of the announcers. Kennedy and, especially Mr. Kennedy just kind of brags about how he did the unthinkable And now that The Undertaker's gone, that Kennedy is the undisputed phenom that this industry has ever witnessed. And Kennedy wants to take that next leap into the totem pole. He tries to propose Booker T an opportunity to go after the world title. Unfortunately, Booker still has his sights set on Chris Benoit, which that match at Survivor Series ended in a countout. So even despite that, Benoit and Booker have their, still have their program going on. So unfortunately, Kennedy is unable to, get involved in that title situation. To kind of make it up to Mr. Kennedy, he sanctions Kennedy for the United States Championship bout against Bobby Lashley. Kennedy guarantees that if he, I think I'm getting my words mixed up here, so I sincerely apologize. But backtracking just a little bit, Tay Long assures that if Mr. Kennedy does win the United States Championship, he could make himself the number one contender to challenge the winner of the Booker Benoit match, utilize that opportunity to live up to that proposal, and thus take it from there, really. So Mr. Kennedy agrees on that condition. He takes on Bobby Lashley. At some point, The Miz gets escorted to backstage, and Bobby Lashley, Mr. Kennedy, they're still going at it. And despite Kennedy's efforts, Bobby Lashley is just one step ahead of him. And Lashley is going to nail his variety of finishers in order to walk out as still your United States champion. Now, when I mentioned variety of finishers, because here's the thing with Bobby Lashley. Even watching some of his past matches, it seemed like they were kind of fluctuating back and forth to decide what Bobby Lashley wanted or how to end his matches. Whether it's, ending his opponents or finishing off his opponents with the Dominator, or if he wanted to nail the spear, or I believe around this time he was doing the running power slam, or at least that was towards the end of his run in WWE. But that's the kind of the thing. It's like Bobby Lashley had like a variety of finishers. I can't remember like which move that he would finish off his opponents on a consistent basis. When he first debuted, it was the Dominator, and then he was doing the spear. Either way, Bobby Lashley's gonna, find a way to outsmart Kennedy, and he is gonna lay him out, get that 1, 2, 3. And he's going to walk out with the United States title still in his grasp. Now we get to the first out of the two doubleheader matches, and this is going to be a no-holds-barred match between Batista and Randy Orton. Now, Batista and Orton have been feuding pretty much all year long, especially factoring in Batista's injury in early 06. He had to take time off to undergo surgery in his triceps, so he had to relinquish the World Heavyweight title. Even while he was gone, Randy Orton took advantage and used that opportunity to become the World Heavyweight Champion by winning that Battle Royal, and took that to WrestleMania. And so even though after WrestleMania, Orton and Batista were gone for a couple months, and they do, however, come back by the time we get to the Great American Bash. It turns out that the attack that Batista suffered from Mark Henry, it turns out that Mark Henry had been paid by Randy Orton to assault Batista to the extent of which Batista would be taken out of action for several months. So Batista's just, he honestly has a thing for Randy Orton, even despite the fact that these two guys have their past history. It's like these two wrestlers were buddies in Evolution, and now they're on opposing sides. Batista was on top of his game in 2005. Orton was kind of going through limbo, just really trying to regain some momentum since he lost the World Heavyweight title. He had this thing with The Undertaker, and he's even trying to get back into that title picture, really trying to regain the momentum that he lost. Batista and Orton are going to completely tear each other apart. It's no holds barred, no DQs, no countouts, anything goes. So they're allowed to use some weapons here. Maybe some bit of brawling, even in the crowd, if need be. But this is going to be a match where this is going to be the sort of the conclusion after months and months and months of them just making each other's lives a living hell. It's like they're costing each other certain matches that they're involved, or in just being a thorn in Batista's eye, even costing him the World Heavyweight title. And Batista, even interfering in Orton's matches as well and just doing all he can to humiliate him. So this is going to be the be-all, end-all, or at least the grand finale as far as this feud is concerned. And Batista's going to get his revenge, and he's going to lay out Orton with the Batista bomb in order to win this entire feud. So afterwards, we get like a bit of a backstage segment. Batista just gives out his thoughts regarding to his reaction as far as his victory is concerned. Batista just announces that now that Orton's gone, or at least Orton's out of the way, it's like Batista's just ready to go. He's ready to get back to where he was at previously and see where he goes from there. So that's going to be how this match is going to be structured. So I definitely think that this particular no holds bar match would be an opportunity to get Batista and Orton just to keep them occupied, keep them busy. He's not necessarily in the title contention despite being on and off again, trying to come back from injury, really try to regain some momentum that he may have lost since suffering from that tricep injury. And Randy Orton, who had been floundering for most of 2006 in actuality. So this also, gives something for Orton as well, especially as a singles competitor. Hopefully that this feud could live up to expectations. Batista is going to go over Randy Orton in this no holds barred match. Now we get to our main event. And this particular main event will be a ladder match for the World Heavyweight Championship belt being hung above the rafters. Booker T defending the belt against Chris Benoit. Benoit and Booker T have their fair share of history, even going back to the previous year with the Best of 7 series where they fought for the US title. Once that was done, Chris Benoit managed to up one Booker T and regain the United States title. So they definitely have like I said, their history. They rekindle their program once again, heading in the Survivor Series. Benoit just came back from his sabbatical. He's coming off strong. And unfortunately, despite the fact that the world title belt was up for grabs, however, Benoit beat Booker T via countout. A title belt cannot change hands by countout or disqualification, so therefore, even though Benoit won the match, Booker T, however, is still the World Heavyweight Champion. So given the circumstances regarding the ending of their Survivor Series match, Teddy Long sanctions one more time Booker T, Chris Benoit, a ladder match for the World Heavyweight Championship. We're not going to have any countouts or disqualifications. This is going to determine who will walk out as still the champ, or who will walk out as world champion. Bottom line is that Benoit and Booker T, this is going to be sort of the final encounter just to determine who is going to, who's the better man walking out of this match. And Booker T going over Chris Benoit, I think this could be like the match of the night, especially given the chemistry that Benoit and Booker have had. But, as opposed to just being a traditional one-on-one match, this is going to sort of raise the stakes, especially adding a ladder match, and to kind of bring some suspense as far as who's going to win this match. And it looks like Benoit is going to, he's getting to that promised land. He's climbing the ladder rung by rung by rung. But, Charmel being that Booker T's valet and his real life wife, obviously, so she's going to play a huge part in making sure Benoit doesn't successfully retrieve the world title. We could also have some interference from Fit Finlay and the Blue Bloods of William Regal and Dave Taylor, so they'll have some outside interference, and Benoit's just doing all he can to fend them off. But despite that, Booker T manages to take the advantage. He's gonna, knock Benoit off the ladder to ringside. This allows Booker T to climb the ladder and successfully retrieve that championship belt in order to still be the World Heavyweight Champion. So that's pretty much my card for Armageddon '06, and I would like to say thank you to the viewers that followed through these video series, I guess you could say. I know it's been quite a long road. I think I started this back in April. For those that did, however, stuck around through the 14 part videos that I've conducted as part of this Wrestling Reimagining series, I would like to thank you all guys for watching. It's been a blast just booking the entire WWE pay-per-view cards. As far as where I'm going from here, that 2007 could shape up to be a pretty promising year, even in hindsight, looking at some of the injuries that happened, especially. But even when it came time for those injuries, I would like to think that this could also give an opportunity for some of these undercard wrestlers to really step their game up and to give a opportunity to take those next steps into superstardom. But yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I definitely had a blast booking WWE 2006. Thank you all guys for watching, and till then, this is the Gold Standard 00924 signing out.